Hello, I'm Andrew Galloway,
And I'm Bruce Greenaway.
and you're listening to Talking Blues.
Well, like you're on radio or something.
Oh, yeah.
And your names rhyme.
Yes, Galloway and Greenaway.
We would have sat
Be a
together
good
in public
company,
school.
you know. We could be an advertising agency or something.
So we're going to do something different today. We're going to talk to Andrew and Bruce about Electrify the last 5 years. I think my first interview with you was actually 6 years ago, I think. And it was episode 1, and we talked about how you got into the record business and some of the artists you worked with. And then you were going to celebrate your 20th anniversary. And then time flew by. The pandemic came. And now?
And yet here we are. We're still standing. Here we are. Yes, I'm a long-time friend of the show and a regular listener. And yeah, that's correct. And now here another 5 years has flown by. And
Interesting 5 years.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Between, the pandemic and changes worldwide and pick your topic. But the blues, God love it, still rambles on.
Okay, so last time we spoke, you were talking about the influence of the digital media and how Spotify and things, streaming was coming into the forefront and CD sales were going down.
Yes.
But you're still going ahead with putting out CDs. Since then, things have changed even more.
Yes, the digital tidal wave has arrived, and it's not all bad. I don't see it as a negative thing. Personally, I like physical objects for music. I mean, like a lot of us, I start out listening to vinyl records and still enjoy that format. But I get the convenience factor of digital. The Spotifys of the world and Amazon and things. But I also still like to think there's some, especially for touring acts, and I have a couple of acts that still tour. Mark Hummel still tours on a regular basis, and I always think of those guys being able to sell a CD at the end of the night, at the end of their gig, and the money goes into the van to get them to the next gig, or it goes to paying the motel tab, and you hate to see any kind of revenue source dry up for anybody in music.
But there was a time when CD sales were going down quite a bit, and you thought, or you made a decision to slow down the production and limit the releases that you were going to do every year.
Right.
Now, this year, you seem to be getting busier, and you've also talked about the CD coming back a bit. Can you talk to that a little bit?
I think it has come back a little bit. I mean, I think it's kind of, it's not what it was, but what is these days. But there's still people that, like to buy a physical object, like to have the CD. There's still people like myself who drive old wrecks around that have a CD player in them, and you can listen to it's a good opportunity to listen to a lot of music driving around doing your errands or whatever. And the digital thing, it's the payment aspect of it is good because it often was in the old days when there was just physical CDs and LPs, you would have a distributor and, they have to wait until the stores pay them, and that can take a while, and then you're kind of at the end of the line to get paid. So you'd have to make a phone call or talk to them, and then lo and behold, they're honorable people. They'll pay you as soon as they get paid, but it might take a while. But a check would arrive, and it would be pretty good, and you go, great, they're great, I got paid. But you would also know the downside of it was feast or famine. Sure, you got paid, and it was a decent amount, and you could pay your bills, but you knew you weren't going to get another check that size the next month. So, whereas with the digital world, the income's far less, but you're going to get payment on the 23rd of every month, so you've got a bit of reliable cash flow, which helps you if you want to greenlight a new project. You kind of know that X amount of dollars would be available to do that.
Can I ask percentage-wise how it breaks up between the two?
Right now, I would say I would say 80% of the income is from digital sources.
Wow.
And that's something that's, you were asking about the last 5 years. That's something that's really, it's almost switched the other way, And so there's that aspect of it there. But there still is, it's funny, the U.S. distribution company I had for the last 22 years kind of merged with this larger company called Amped, and they're the largest physical distribution company in the U.S. now, and that's kind of really helped. They're able to reach the stores that still exist, and so that's actually boosted sales up a little bit,
Wow.
CD-wise, because all the smaller individual distributors, they used to have like a person for almost every state in the union that would go around to the stores and be in contact, and near the end they would only have like one or two people that would like do the whole country, so naturally that's going to impact sales as well. So it's interesting to watch how it's shaking down and where it's going and how it's and I think a lot of people that make CDs now, they don't even think they're going to get paid. There's no anticipation of it being paid. Whereas the old days when I started, a lot of the artists I worked with, elderly African American artists from the post-war generation, it was kind of like, well, how much are you going to pay me to make the record? And then you'd come to an agreement on that. And then, the record would get made and everybody would be happy. And that was kind of the thing. Now it's kind of people are just going to making the record, getting their music out is more important than the compensation for it. Well, it's not more important, but it's not the deciding factor anymore,
And so why do they do it?
I think that's a great question, but I think it's like a calling card. It's like, here's our band, here's who we are, here's what we sound like, and here's our CD, which can have great artwork and a good picture of the band. It's a promotional tool. Someone said, and I agree, the CD is the new tour poster. And I thought, that's great if you're touring, but if you're not, it's kind of like,
But there was a time when people would put out new products so that they can have send it to festivals and get more gigs.
Yeah, yes.
Is that still the way?
Yes, I think that still lives on a little bit because it is a good way to get a festival booking, and you can also, if you're looking at places where you still might be able to sell some CDs, a festival is a good spot for that because it's a nice sunny day, and you might have a couple thousand people there, and you put on a good set, and you can still sell some product there.
So a few years ago, you decided to slow things down a bit.
Yes.
Was that, I can't remember because time just flies by and I have no memory. Was that pandemic related or was it before the pandemic?
It was a little bit pandemic related because nobody was touring then, and it was just harder to get into a studio and just get, different people together to play was a real tough thing. And I found I missed it more. At first I was like, oh, thank God, I've got a break here. And I could enjoy some things and, and take a little bit of a breather. But then I found out, I was surprised how much I missed it. So I had a few things planned, ready to go with, Harrison Kennedy's an artist who likes to work and always has a bunch of songs and likes to record. And, so I was kind of really enjoying getting back into it. So, and we'll have 3 releases this year. So,
okay, tell me about the 3. Well, before you tell me about the 3 releases, tell me about the thinking of coming back. What's different about coming back now?
Well, the thinking was, what is it I do for a living exactly? Oh yeah, I remember. No, I missed it. That's the one thing I've always, I've been able to carve out a small, modest Canadian living over the last 25 years from it, which I'm proud of. But it's the whole thing right from day one was like, wow, here's an artist who I think really has something to say, and let's record them. Let's share this music. Let's get this music out with the world. And I also, now with the passage of time, I think about guys like, Mel Brown and Curly Bridges and Snooky Pryor, a lot of artists I was super lucky to work with that are no longer with us. And I think maybe not so much in Snooky's case or Mel, because people knew how good they were, but a guy like Curly Bridges, he was great. And he never would have, back in the day, made his own recording, because people just didn't do that in those days. But the fact that there's like 3 CDs out there, and all on all digital platforms as well, that just show how good this guy was, what a good singer he was, and what an excellent keyboard guy he was, and how he could lead a band. So I still get a kick out of that, I wasn't thinking at the time that so much, but looking back on it, I'm thinking, wow, that's great that there's literally a record of how good this guy or that gal, or, it's with a number of people. But I think it really is a record of what someone sounded like and what they could perform and what their music sounded like,
Do you approach things differently this time around?
Yeah, soon it'll be me that won't be around, and there'll be no record of that. But no, we kind of work the same way. What's changed is it used to be in the early days when I was working with a lot of African Canadian, African American artists. We would record, like with Alec Fraser, who had a great liquid studio and a couple of places we worked at. We would come in and record, and that would be it. Now a lot of younger artists, guys like Mark Hummel and even James Harmon, who I had the fortunate enough to put 2 albums out with, they do the work. They record it, because a lot of them live in the States as well. They'll record it, and then you'll release it. Like they'll, send it to you as a finished, mastered recording. So that's a little different,
But do you have different expectations from releasing an album, a CD now?
A little more realistic, maybe, because there's not the touring there. Well, I'll tell you a brief story. Is in 2000, I was lucky enough to go over to Europe with Willie Smith and Pine Top Perkins and Mel Brown and Snooky Pryor, and I took 600 CDs that I shoved in this big travel case on wheels, and it was like a 2-week tour, and I thought, great, man, if I can sell half of these, that'll be fantastic. That'll pay for my trip over here, and the guys will make some money, and it'll be great. We sold all 600 the first night. We did a thing at the Cognac Blues Festival, and it was like on their main stage, and of course those guys went over like a bomb. People loved it, and so we sold them all in one night. So those days are most definitely gone, But now, you could have a good artist, and you look at, like, you could have, actually, it's like likes and listens, Unfortunately, there's not the same kind of money attached to them, which for someone trying to make a living, be it the artist or whoever, that's a tougher thing. But it's still all about getting somebody's music out to people who haven't heard it, or people who have heard it and want to hear more.
So with us also is my good friend Bruce. Hi, Bruce.
How's it going?
Bruce has done a lot of artwork for Electrify. How did that come about?
I have no idea. Bruce, how did that come about?
I don't know, man.
No, Bruce is, we're all friends. And Bruce has great talent as a designer, photographer, print media expert, That's just the good stuff. We won't talk about the other stuff. And he kindly, we worked on a couple of projects going.
We worked on a project before we even knew each other.
Yes, that's right. We're talking about a Morgan Davis
The
album.
Blues Medicine record, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That is cool when you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah. I worked on that with Morgan, and you were the record company. I didn't know who you were. I thought you were this huge...
Oh, I'm glad I fooled one person. Thank you.
And I think you thought I was somebody.
Yeah,
and really,
I
it was
thought
just
you
like
were
the
some
three of us.
design conglomerate. You'd be some guy with a pipe, on the 42nd floor somewhere.
And sure enough, years later, after we met, it's like, hey, you're the guy.
Hey, you're that guy. Hey, man.
Was that the first Morgan album? Or did you do many others
No,
before
I
that?
I did work on one before, but I think it was on Stony Plain. I think
That's right. That's
I
right.
don't know who put it
The
out.
first one on Electrify.
The first one on Electrify was
Blues Medicine, yeah.
yeah.
So how did you get into doing albums?
Well, I'm a graphic artist, and I'm a fan of music, and back then, you're kind of, you think if you can do a record cover, that's,
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yes.
And I think I used to hang out a lot down in Grossman's and Crooks and all those places and see a lot of bands, and eventually I got to know Morgan just because I'd go watch that guy because he seemed a little different. I liked the way he played. He was just, the guy was kind of...
Still is, man.
Yeah.
Still is.
Yeah.
You're right.
And and then we just over time became friends, and then he was putting out a record, and I was just getting out of college, I think, at the time, and he said, hey, can you do my record cover? And I'm like, yeah, I can.
That's the way it started?
That's the way it started. And I didn't even know how to do a record cover. I didn't know any. I just said yeah because I just thought this was going to be awesome, and it was a big scary experience, because we put out at the time it was an LP
Right.
and a cassette. And the new thing was the CD. Nobody knew anything about a
Right,
CD. How do you put that together? What is it?
Who knew?
And yeah, so we had to tackle that problem. And I'm new to the business, and it was a nightmare, but it all worked out.
Yeah.
And
No, it worked out great.
So
You
you're
did-
basically working on 3 different things.
yeah, in the beginning.
For a short period of time, yeah.
Yeah, there was a crossover right there where you had all 3 things. I mean, if there were 8 tracks were still going, that would have been in there too, but they were gone.
And why was it a nightmare?
Because I was fresh out of college, so I didn't really know what I do, and I didn't have production connections, anything like that. So I was just winging it. I was just calling in favors and asking people, and I got to do this. Where do I go for that?
Well, you were a quick learner, man. Because
So so we did it. We got through it and we put it out, and
Which album was it? What was it called?
I think it was his first. It wasn't he put out a record back in the '80s. I'm Ready to Play. That's the one with Why July on it.
Right.
That was an independent, I think.
Yeah.
Bullhead, his record label.
Bullhead, yeah, his own label. That's right.
And then I think Stony Plain had picked him up for his.
I think he did 2 with Stony Plain, I think, or 2.
I can't remember. I don't know. I think I only
Couple.
did one that had a Stony Plain label on it. Yeah, no, man, you're going back like.
Yeah, I know. We're going.
That's
way
decades back, man.
Well, I first met Morgan in 1974, 73, when he was playing with a Chicago blues legend, and then I saw him again at the Brunswick House in the 80s,
Yeah.
and he had his pompadour and his crushed velvet smoking jacket and playing his slide guitar. It was great. So to actually end up working with someone that you knew way back is kind of cool. Because,
Yeah.
But no, Bruce has great skills as a designer, because my friend Gary Culver's also helped me a lot in terms of design. He's the guy that asked me when we did our first album, he goes, do you have a designer? And I was kind of like, what's a designer? But you're fortunate that, the good thing as a record label is you can get talented people like Bruce and Gary and that, because they enjoy it. I had one guy who was a really talented designer, and I said, hey, thanks, that's great, and you did a fantastic design. He goes, no, thank you, because he worked at some high-powered advertising agency making the big bucks, and he said, doing this CD design, it reminded me why I wanted to be a designer in the first place. So
the real work is soulless.
in other words, we don't pay much money, but the artistic creativity is endless.
So you did one of Morgan's albums, and you did many of Morgan's albums since then.
Yeah, it just didn't stop after that. Everyone he did was, here's the next one. Okay.
So what's the process when somebody says, can you do my album? What happens?
Oh, man.
Any number of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think each one is different, and each artist is different, and they each approach a cover design differently. Some are right into it, and some of them just want to see a finished product, and fewer kind of in between. And so it just really depends on who it is. Budgets are always a concern. I don't really charge that much because I'm a fan and I like to do it, but you still got to keep the lights on, so there has to be some money.
Sure.
So we usually talk about the money that's involved first and work within a budget. And, what else do they have to bring? Do we have to do photos? Do they have photos?
And what's realistic? I find some artists, God love them, but they'll come up with some concept or something. And it's just like, yeah, maybe if we were MGM in 1939 and we could fly in the Flying Monkeys and do it. But it's just, but so it's what's, doable.
Yeah.
And what suits. I always thought, an old record guy told me one time, you have to catch their eye before you can catch their ear.
Yeah.
So I think it has to reflect it, which your stuff with Morgan and other artists you've worked with, it does. It reflects kind of like who the artist is and what the music is a little bit,
Well, you like to they have a vision. Usually, like Morgan will have a vision. This is kind of what I'm thinking and what I want. And then they're like, can you achieve what they want? Sometimes there's no way. The idea is just too far out there. Other times you can sort of find it, do it. Sometimes it comes out better than they thought. Sometimes they're like, yeah, they like it, whatever. But it's tricky because a designer wants to design a record the way he thinks it should be designed, and then you have to sort of work with. I mean, we often talk about it. It's kind of like Pink Floyd. They go into the studio, they create a masterpiece like Dark Side of the Moon, and the designer comes in with a record cover with a prism on it and drops it on the table and says, "This is the cover."
Yeah.
I bet you every member of Pink Floyd went,
what? Yes, yeah. But then they're inseparable. Like as time goes by,
it becomes one of the most iconic record covers.
You look at the cover, you hear the music. That's when it works.
Yeah. So that was an artist's vision, more so than I don't think Pink Floyd got together and said, "We don't have a prism on the cover of
That's
this
back
record."
when record labels had real power and they could tell the artists what to do. So, which we never did at Electrify.
Yeah. So it's hard because when you create something new, it's a vision that hasn't been realized yet. Right. So there has to be a bit of trust between the designer and the band or the musician or whatever that, that might be the way to go for this, even though I can't see it right now. I kind of get it.
And you can find out as you go along. But you know what? I'll say this about Bruce, if I might. There's certain individuals and certain designers, they just inherently know what looks cool. Bruce is one of those guys. He knows, like, when he shows you an image, you're like, wow, that looks cool. That really echoes the music or showcases the music, And you can't learn that, I don't think. You either know what, like, looks cool or doesn't look cool.
As evidenced by many horrible album covers.
Which we've all seen, yes. Yeah. With the 99-cent sticker slapped on them.
No, I mean, it's just, there's an intangible that you think, okay, most albums have a picture and have a font. Yeah. Seems simple enough, but there's so many horrible album covers with horrible pictures.
Exactly. And there's a few ways to look at it too. Some are over designed, some are too slick.
Yeah.
Like
less is more is good.
They kind of look amazing, but you're like, it just doesn't quite. I mean, there's artists I can't think off the top of my head right now, but
Can you think of a great album cover that you look at and think, oh my God, that's amazing?
Well, one of the most famous record covers, and I totally agree with the graphic design of it, is Nevermind the Bollocks by the Sex Pistols. It's a crazy, weird-looking cover with very odd colors, but it's iconic. I mean, right now when I say it, I'm sure both you guys are picturing that record cover in your head because it's so memorable. When that could have been, easily a graffitied punk wall, black and white, Ramones style. It's completely the other. But that was what Malcolm McLaren did. He I don't know if he designed that. Was he the designer?
That was his thing, I think, was the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
I don't know who actually designed it.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
I just know the cover. I think the cover is really... Again, that would be another thing. I don't know. You plunk that down in front of Johnny Rotten. I wonder, how he took it and whether he... I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. I mean, there's a million covers I love too. I should go through my old records and just look at them again, but you know,
The band
from a
had some
graphic
great
standpoint,
covers.
yeah. And then some of them are just the images
Who's
are great.
Next? That image of that monolith or whatever it was, you know. That
Yeah.
was kind of cool, and you know.
Yeah.
And anything with Muddy Waters on the cover looks just cool
Well,
as hell.
yeah, those guys with their
Or the wolf.
faces
Yeah,
were awesome,
yeah,
and if
exactly.
the cover was their big
Exactly.
face, that
Yeah,
was amazing.
That was superb.
Black and white, clean, simple.
Just super cool. You could hear the music just looking at the album. You know?
Yeah.
But it must have been weird though, because it was the canvas you had with the vinyl LP was 12 inches by 12 inches, which is a pretty good sized canvas, and then it shrinks down to like with the CD 5 inches by 5 inches,
Yeah.
and with cassette tapes, man, it was kind of like
Oh yeah,
Different
and then
shape.
if you take it even further, it goes on to iTunes and it's
Yeah.
a thumbnail. It's like
Yeah, it's
1
a
inch
little
by 1
thumb-
inch,
I
so
know,
it's
I
a
know.
really.
yeah.
I mean, that's something you can't really consider that as a a problem for you. You have to design about a CD size, and
But
then
I think design and the music should be together. Like,
Yeah.
I'd hate to lose like an album, even if there isn't a physical album cover. Just as long as here's the image that goes with this album, you know.
yeah,
But then so many albums aren't happening now. So many, especially younger artists, are like, here's a single, here's an EP. We're going to put the songs out one at a time. But, you know, I think that's a missed opportunity if you don't have a real cool image of the artist or the band connected with each song, you know. So,
yeah. And that's cool too. But you got to hope that the record is going to be strong enough to maintain it, right? Because you
Yes,
can have a really
right.
good cover, and then people
Right.
listen to the record,
Yeah.
and they're like, I don't know if they put 100% into this. It seems like
I don't know.
I don't know with the younger guys. I don't know if that's the same
I
because
don't
they
know
can
if it
just
means the
record
same.
stuff on Pro
Yeah.
Tool or what.
They can
have
just post it and
yeah.
there it is.
It seems like it's lost some of that. You go
Yeah.
into a studio and you're paying that dollarly rate. You got to make sure,
Yes.
that you're putting your best out there. Whereas now, you can do it in your basement. You can erase stuff and
Well, my gallery as a kid was getting on the TTC and going down to Sam the Record Man at Yonge and
Yeah.
Dundas and seeing like the wall of
Yeah.
albums and bands. And even though I didn't know half of them or more,
Yeah.
just seeing the images, you'd just be like, oh man, I wonder what that sounds like, or I'd like to listen to that, or this looks cool, or that.
I used to do that at Vortex.
Yeah.
You go down to
Yeah.
Vortex, and because it was only
Yeah.
$2 or $3 for a
Yeah.
used record, and just go,
Yeah.
cover looks cool, $2.
Yep.
I'm gonna see if this is any good. Sometimes I get home, it'd be terrible, it'd be awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of albums where the cover's the best part of the album, but
But I wonder if that happens at all anymore.
yeah.
In what way? What do you mean?
Just going into CD store, looking at the cover
Oh,
and thinking,
yeah.
I'm going to buy that
But,
for $19.99.
Yeah, $20.
yeah,
So tell me about the 3 albums you're releasing this year.
Good question. Well, the first one's already out. Thanks for Tomorrow from Harrison Kennedy, who turned 80 this year, which is great, and goes way back to being a soul superstar in the 70s, and definitely a great blues man now, and that's had a real good response. So I'm happy about that. And Harrison's out touring this summer, doing a few cool gigs, and then we did one that's a little change of pace, which Bruce designed, which is great. Jake Chisholm, called Hands Held High, kind of a next generation guy, certainly a next generation guy compared to me, but Steve Mariner's on it, and Jimmy Boskill, and it's I would call it rock blues, not to hang any label on it, but it's just Jake's a guy who really knows his music. Used to have, I remember when he was a young kid in town, Jake and the Blue Midnights, when Jump Blues had its moment in the sun. He had a great band, and then he just went with the music, and this is his latest album, and I'm real happy to put it out on Electrify. That's coming out in the middle of September.
How did that happen?
He just contacted me. We knew each other a little bit over the years, and I'd always liked his work, and I'd always thought his stuff was good, and he just sent me he sent me the file of the album, and I had a listen, and I just really liked it, and I thought, well, this doesn't fit in completely with kind of the older artists or the deep blues kind of thing the label's originally known for, but I thought, man, this is good music, and I like it, and it's cool. And then we were over here, I think, one night, and Bruce listened to it, you listened to it, and you know, anybody I played it for seemed to respond very positively. So I thought, hey, let's do it. Let's roll the dice and put this out. And you know, I'm expecting it'll get a good response. And you know,
Okay, so Bruce, Andrew comes to you and says, "Can you do this album cover?"
I asked him, what do you think of the music? You know,
Yeah, no, we listened to it in your backyard. We listened to you had some tracks with you, and we listened
That's
to
right.
it. It was pretty cool. And you said you were going to put it out.
Yeah,
and
thinking
and he
about
said
it,
I need to get the cover done, and I said, yeah, well, I'll help. Okay. So handed me some photos, and
Does he give you a title? Is that?
Oh,
is
yeah,
that what-
it had a
Is
title.
that the first thing you need?
I need to know graphically what I have to work with. Photographs, things like that. Content is content, and you just make that work. But images is really what I need to have or not have. If there's no images, then I got to approach it a different way. If there's images, I got to approach it a different way. If there's images like Jake had, you have to approach that a different way. So we had to sort of just manipulate.
So before you think about the album title, like I would imagine the album title dictates everything, but for you it's the images.
Actually, it's the music more. That's why I always like to hear the music before. Like Andrew always gives me the rough tracks before, like when I'm starting on it before it's out, because we knew that Jake's was not going to be the traditional electrify.
So why
sort
have
of
it look
record.
like a traditional?
Yeah, so we had to go sort of with a more clean,
Yeah.
kind of different, non-traditional, bluesy, hacked up kind of a look. It had to be.
And Jake loved it. He loved it,
so
and I love it. It's cool.
It all kind of worked out, but you know, you have to approach that differently than when we did the one with the Charlie Musselwhite on it there.
Oh yes, It's a blues compilation.
My mind is blanking right
It's
now.
It's a blues compilation, and you got a great old timey like Southern general store.
Oh yeah. So
It's,
found that image
yeah.
would actually fit the music perfectly.
Walter Davis.
Walter
It's a tribute
Davis
to
project.
Walter Davis.
Yeah.
Got Billy Boy Arnold on it, Charlie Musselwhite.
All the big guys. See, I got
Yeah.
nervous over that one
Yeah.
because I looked at those guys and went, "Oh man!"
But
that's
again,
heavyweights,
you
right?
totally, and it was older stuff as well, and but you just you really captured the vibe of that, you know.
Case in point, that record came with a lot of information, so much so that we made a book. That
Yes,
I don't know.
yeah.
Do you re-release that? Does the book? Because the book's expensive. That was like a 12-page book.
It's
that
still
got
in print.
inserted.
A lot of people don't know who Walter Davis is or didn't know who Walter Davis, but we had like Charlie Musselwhite, who loves the guy's stuff. He was an artist in the 30s, 40s, and a songwriter and played piano and a unique guy. Billy Boy Arnold loves the guy. Billy Boy kind of started it, and he got this piano player friend of his in Germany to record some stuff, and it just went from there. So, and I just thought, wow, this would be cool to put out. That's one. It's not necessarily a bestseller, but it gives the label some credibility, and it's nice just to kind of. I thought, man, if I'm this interested about it, maybe there's other people that'll be that interested. So but
that
Bruce
one,
nailed
that
it.
one had me sweating because there was rules attached to that too, right? Remember,
Yeah,
Charlie Musselwhite
Right.
would be on it, but he insisted not to be
yeah.
front and center. He just
Yes.
wanted to be one of the players.
That's
so
fair
I
because
couldn't-
he had one song on it, so he didn't want.
He didn't want
you know,
to be
like Charlie Musselwhite presents. And
Right.
I get it.
So
you know.
then I had to work with that. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, Charlie, just got to be part of it.
He was part of the team. There was no real. I mean, Billy Boy had the most tracks on it, but it wasn't like there was any. It was a various artists one. It wasn't
Yeah.
like any one artist was the marquee guy on it or gal on it. You know.
So that puts a whole pile of different problems
Yeah.
on the desk, right? You're like, okay, how's this work? But then I did it. We figured it out. It looked cool. I got it to look pretty cool. And then the first email I got back was from Charlie Musselwhite. I
Yeah.
thought, that was
How
wicked.
cool is that?
He's like,
Yes.
he loved it right away. No changes.
And he sent a copy to Tom Waits. How cool is that? I'm like, geez. And maybe we'll even sell some. Who knows?
Yeah.
But no matter. Yeah, no, that was great.
That was cool. I mean, those are the kinds of stories.
Yeah.
That's neat stuff.
I agree. That's the cool part of it, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then all that just leads to all the other fun stuff that we ended up doing over the years. It's just insane. Just all the concerts and tours and festivals
Yeah,
and
yeah.
insane people, cool people we've met. It's just nuts.
Ton of fun. Ton of
Yeah.
fun. That's why we're not stopping till we have to.
The third album. What's the third album?
The third album is this one. I'm also really stoked about. It's the Blackburn Brothers from Toronto, who I think everybody knows. I think they're Canada's best blues band. I really do, especially if you want to call it soul blues or whatever. You know, the album's going to be called Soul Funk and Blues, and you know, you've got Dwayne Blackburn, you've got Corey Blackburn, you know, Brooke Blackburn. They're all great writers. They've been playing since they were in the crib. Their dad was Bobby Dean Blackburn, one of the first African-Canadian guys to play rock and roll back in the 50s. Robbie Robertson remembers hearing him and how good he was, and he's still playing. He was just at the Maple Blues Awards and played a very nice tune with the band. And these guys have been, you know, their last one we did was Brothers in This World, and that was 7 years ago, believe it or not. And that was Juno nominated. So and this record is just super cool. It's going to come out very early next year, probably about late January of 2023. And he said hopefully, but no, it'll be worth the wait. Believe me, they're some kind of band. Those guys, they're really unique. They're one of a kind. I think they're Canada's best band.
One of the truly great live bands.
Yes. Oof. Oh yeah, yeah. They're scary good live. You know?
Yeah.
It's a well-oiled machine, you know.
It is.
And Neil Braithwaite on horns, and there's, you know, but yeah, to have the three brothers doing this band, and it's great. They have individual side projects, but the Blackburn Brothers it's it. And you know, when I get excited about it, I think that's good. If I'm that excited, maybe someone else will, you know, pick up on that. And they're great. They do a lot of. They're out this summer doing a bunch of festivals, and they tour quite a bit, you know. And they've played in the States, you know. They played down at the Pocono Festival, and they've been down in Memphis and played there, and you know, and nice guys, fun guys, cool guys, you know.
Before you talked about plans for the future, like you would plan ahead a year or more. Is that still the case, or how does that work?
There's a few things, you know, on the back burner. I'd like to do a few more reissues these days as well. Sam Myers, who I was lucky enough to do an album with, Mel Brown's on it, Jack DeKaiser's on it, Jimmy Boudreau. We cut that back in 2004, believe it or not, called Coming from the Old School. And believe it or not, that's my number one digital seller, is Sam Myers. And I get it. Sam Myers was great. He played with Elmore James, and there was nobody like Sam Myers, you know. And so I'm going to reissue that, and there's a bonus track that wasn't released at the time that should go on it, and I'm going to redo the liner notes and unfortunately, you know, Sam passed away 2 years after it was done, and literally 3 months after we finished the sessions up in Toronto, he got ill, and you know, so, but I know he loved that album, so that makes me feel good. And again, like, if that had been delayed 3, 4, 5 months, that album never would have happened. So, you know.
Anything else?
Well, again, James Harmon, who I was lucky to do a couple of albums with, he has an incredible, like, 100-song studio archive of tracks, and Nathan James, who was his guitar player for the last few years, and is a great, insanely good talent himself. I'm talking to him about the possibility, because James wanted this material to come out, and I thought if I could get together with Nathan, and Nathan could mix it and master it, and you know, and he'll know. I'm giving him free hand to put it together, because no one knew James better than Nathan did. So that's something that might happen, hopefully, you know. Paul Osher's another one I would like to do that, because that's something we did like back in the year 2000 with Alec Fraser at Liquid, and we put the album out, and it did very well, and it was kind of when Paul was coming back on the scene after a long time away. Fantastic singer. He was the first Caucasian guy in the Muddy Waters band, and he was a great harmonica player and guitar player and piano player. What happened there, though, is Paul was kind of like a bit obsessive about, he came up to Toronto and like the winter, and we spent a week with Alec in the studio, and we cut some great stuff with just Paul. And that was the idea. It was just going to be, it was called Alone with the Blues. It was just him playing the blues. And we cut some great stuff. Most of it ended up on the record, but at the last minute, I think he kind of got cold feet, and he wanted to put on like 3 or 4 other tracks that he'd recorded in the past that had a band on them, and one was kind of like cut on a cassette tape, and they all had something going for them, but it didn't. To me, they never fit with the stuff we recorded in the Toronto sessions. So what I'd love to do is, and there's 1 or 2 things we recorded in Toronto that didn't come out. So what I'd like to do is swap out the 4 tracks that were kind of dropped in at the last minute from other sources, and just have all the album, call it the Toronto session or something, and just have all the stuff we recorded that week. And I think there'd be way more flow to it, and it would just be, it's all in the same room, and it all has the same sound. And so that's an idea I'm kicking around.
How does that work posthumously?
That's a good question. I own the rights to it, so I can do it, and I wouldn't do it if I think Paul would kind of like. And I spoke to him. I saw him several times after we did the record and talked to him. At one time I said, I wish we'd use more of the stuff we cut in Toronto, and he's like, yeah, that was all good stuff. So he liked it. So I think he'd be cool with it. So.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure he'd be fine.
And it's releasing a couple of tracks that haven't been heard, and I also think of the people that loved him and loved his music. So that's kind of sharing a few things they haven't heard before. And I just think it's I'm not saying I know better than the artist or trying to outthink the artist, but I'm just saying, like, if it was all done at one time in one room, there's kind of a cohesive feel to it.
But there's no estate that you have to deal with to put out this material?
Yeah, there is. I know those folks, and they're kind of cool with it. And because actually they asked for one of the songs back that like he'd... and I said, yeah, I don't claim the rights to that song because Paul dropped that song in. Like, that was Paul's wish to use that. So I returned the rights to I think 2 of the 3 songs that so that's cool. But then I kind of have the say on the tracks that we recorded, so yeah.
So re-releasing older albums, is it easier? Like, why go that way as opposed to record new stuff?
Well, I'm hoping to do a balance of the both, but it's a little less stressful, to be honest, doing a re-release, because it's obviously some album that's had a bit of success, and you think, well, people might not know about it, and new people might be able to hear it, and it keeps it in print, because the other thing is, that's where digital has a big advantage, because if you put something on Spotify, it's up there forever, man. It'll never go out of print, and you don't have to manufacture anything else. There's no shipping involved, so I get why that's an easier route. But I always think I put a few things out in limited editions, like we did one with Mark Hummel that was all great blues from the 70s in the Bay Area, East Bay Blues Vaults it's called. And we sold 1,000 copies on it because it was a limited edition, and it was kind of a cool project. And Bruce did that one as well.
That had all its own challenges.
Yeah, that had about 8 CDs worth of copy that you were able to get in one CD.
The content was huge.
Yeah, because there's 22 artists on it. There's 22 tracks on it.
And the photos were old.
The photos were old.
They were hard to work with.
But people loved it, Yeah,
it turned out okay. It's a good record.
Our pain is others' pleasure, like that, I think, sometimes. But
it
was a good record.
Why only 1,000?
Just because, to be realistic, I don't think it would have maybe sold more than 1,000 anyways, but it's just for the collectors, and it's just like a limited edition kind of thing, and it's one way to kind of get attention to the project, and a lot of it got good press, it got some good reviews, and a lot of the reviews said, hey, there's only 1,000 of these, so get this now, so I think that helped a bit too,
So there's none more to be had?
No more to be had. And there's no digital release. That's the other thing. We didn't put out a digital release on it. So the only way you can hear it is to get the CD. So we might put out a digital release down the road a little bit, but for now, there's no way other than get the CD. So,
is there anything else you want to talk about? Is there anything else to talk about?
There's plenty to talk about, but I think we're good. I'm good if you guys are. But thanks, I really enjoyed this, you know, and I want and thank you, because man, we all of us go way back, but I remember like Harborfront, 1998, and came to see.
No, it could have been 98. I think it was 2000.
Was it 2000? No, it was maybe 1999, man, because I'm trying to think the record was out. That's why they were playing Harborfront, Mel and Snooky, and you know, and you had Talkin Blues, and I was like, man, I know this guy has got his own TV show on Bravo
man. Check
Network,
that out.
coast to coast, and it's all great blues people, you know.
Who is this guy?
No, it was very cool, you know. So
It was cool.
Yeah.
When you think about how different the world is today.
I know,
It's crazy.
But that was great that happened then, and it's great we're still kind of doing things related or following the same, you know, path. So.
Wow,
But
you've been a
that's-
good friend from the very beginning. I appreciate you doing this again.
Likewise, it's a pleasure
And Bruce?
hanging with you guys. And we've done a few good road trips too.
Yes.
Damn good road trips, yeah.
We were nearly killed once, but other than that, it's been all fun.
So let me tell you a story about my good friend Bruce.
Uh-oh.
This will tell you what a good friend Bruce is. A few years ago, I think it's like 6 years now, I had to put my cat down.
Yes. And I know you love your cats.
Yeah, and this is
truly
one of my
do.
favorite, Max.
Yeah.
And I couldn't take him to the vet. I couldn't do it. And Bruce said, "I'll do it,"
Well, you asked.
and he did. Like he just and that day we were supposed to do an interview with Steve Miller.
Oh, that was
Was
Steve
that
Miller
that day?
Days.
Yeah.
Was the day you guys?
Yeah, so
interviewed Steve
the
Miller?
goal
Wow.
was to go see Steve Miller.
And Harrison that night. Remember we were supposed to go to the Dominion or whatever that place was on Queen that night?
I don't remember that,
Yeah.
but I remember. I had gotten approval to get an interview with Steve Miller to do 10 minutes so he can talk about B.B. King. Same day, we have to put the cat down, and I can't do this. Bruce says, I'll take him in, which was like the most amazing thing. I will never forget that.
Yeah.
And
So-
you knew your cat was in good hands.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah.
You know.
Just down the block.
Yeah.
And then we drove down to the Steve Miller concert. We get there, and they have no record of us coming.
Perfect. How'd the rest of your day go?
So they go, this is a good day. Anyway, somehow the road manager says, you're on the list, come on in. And we go in. Except that they get no sound check, so he says, don't mention the sound check.
Oh, okay.
Whatever you do, don't mention the sound check.
Yes. Emphasize.
Don't disturb the rock
don't
star in
say
any way, shape,
sound
or
check,
form.
Don't
Yes.
think
Yeah.
sound check.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
So 20 minutes later, we go on Steve's bus.
Yeah.
He's very nice. I'll ask him a few questions about B.B. King.
Super talented guy.
He's great. He's got great stories about B.B. King.
Yeah.
And then I said, I don't know if you have a few more minutes to talk about your career, but I would love to ask you a few questions. And he says, sure.
yeah, you didn't care.
And an hour and a half later,
Yeah.
we finished the interview, which is a great interview. It was amazing.
Oh, it was cool. That was cool.
We're leaving, and they had given us tickets to the show, but this is like 6 o'clock. And he says, wait a second. Let me get my camera. So there's Bruce and I at the parking lot at the amphitheater.
Yeah, the Budweiser stage.
And there's Steve Miller taking a picture of Bruce and I.
I know. And it's I've seen that picture. It's a great picture.
And
I'm sure he
then
framed it. There's no question.
It's got
he
to.
says, what are you guys doing for dinner?
Yeah.
We have no plans because the show doesn't start till 7. We're
Right.
at the parking lot at 6. So we go out to dinner with Steve Miller. And it was, once again, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing
Oh, I
experience.
know. I was nervous at dinner, but it was cool. It was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, you're sitting there with Steve Miller. Come on, man.
But it was just like what would have been a horrible
Yes.
day, and it was
Yeah,
a
it was a
horrible day.
horrible day, but
But
nice ending to the day at least.
yeah,
Turning it
really
around.
nice ending.
the help
he
of
had
a
his
good
people
friend.
give us all access passes and 2 seats for the show because we
Yeah.
weren't even going to stay for that.
Yeah.
So we got 2 great seats and we watched.
And dinner. So
Yeah.
Now I heard you scalped those seeds. Took the money. That's just an ugly rumor.
anyway, that's the type of person Bruce is, and that's why he's such a
yes.
great
No,
friend.
he's a stand-up guy.
Oh gosh,
Great.
idiots!
So anytime you have to
Yeah.
put your cat down, give Bruce a call.
Yeah.
I'm heartless.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Marco.
Thanks, Marco. It was great, man.